Good morning or good afternoon. I want to start this presentation by thanking Dr. Meng Tiang for the opportunity to share with you some of the research that I have been doing recently on civic and citizenship education. And this presentation today is about the International Civic and Citizenship Study, the International Study Center, and is in the framework of this program that is called Cultivating Global Citizenship, Empowering Teachers to Become Change Agents in Pakistan. My name is Andres Sandoval-Hernández, and together with my colleague Maria Magdalena Isaac, we are the directors of the current cycle of this international study on civic and citizenship education. So the presentation today is going to be divided into three parts. The first one, I'm going to give an overall landscape of global citizenship. In the second, I'm going to talk a bit more in detail, a brief description about this international civic and citizenship study. And finally, I'm going to talk about the role of the teachers in this context. And it's not completely accurate. I'm going to talk about the role of the teachers, but also the role of a society in general, and how we all can contribute to address the challenges that our current world is facing. So let's go to the first part. This is again the overall landscape of global citizenship. So what is the status of civic education, civic and citizenship education today? How can we address society's challenges through citizenship education? What are the challenges that society is facing? Well, what are those complex challenges? I'm going to mention some. This is, of course, a non-exhaustive list, but that gives us an idea of where we are standing. We have observed a decline in trust and participation in democratic processes around the world, and particularly in the young population. We are also witnessing a mass migration because of different reasons. Conflicts, but also globalization processes in general. The point is that there are large groups of people moving from one place to another, and with the challenges that this poses for both the group of people who is migrating and the receptive countries. We're also facing, we hear more and more often about disinformation and the dissemination of fake news. And this is, of course, in relation with the rapid evolution of artificial intelligence and cybersecurity threats, like the deep fake videos, for example, that are currently very popular. And on top of everything, we have violent conflicts and wars that we are witnessing more and more frequently nowadays. So what can be our response? What can we do from our trench? And I propose that we must prepare young people to be informed, to be responsible, and to be committed citizens. And we can do that, I again propose, through high-quality citizenship education, because this is crucial to foster informed, engaged citizens. However, civic and citizenship education has its own main challenges. As you may know as teachers, very often, civic and citizenship education is assigned a peripheral role in the curriculum. It's not one of the core subjects. It's not like mathematics, reading, or science that we see everywhere in the news, in policies, in research. Civic education normally has a role that is more situated in the outsides of these main subjects. That, in turn, is related to the lack of sufficient support or lack of resources for an effective implementation of the curriculum on civic and citizenship education. And well, on top of that, we have the challenges that teachers face in the day-to-day life. For example, civic and citizenship education is really related and has lots of topics that are sensitive or controversial. As I was saying, things like violent conflicts and wars that are debatable are hot topics always. They're difficult to discuss. We have other things about attitudes towards immigrants, which are also difficult to discuss, particularly in classrooms where you have both sides of the conflict present there, but also attitudes towards political parties, trust in institutions, attitudes towards gender equality. All those topics that are sensitive are difficult to address, and which we have seen more and more that teachers are not qualified. They don't have support, they don't have guidelines on how to address those topics, and then many teachers end up avoiding the topics in the classroom. So what can we do? I think my first reaction to this, we can do something through education. But the first thing that we have to do is evaluation. We have to evaluate. We have to know. We need to know where we are standing, so we can have a basis to develop plans, strategies to address those topics. And the International Civic and Citizenship Education Study, I also propose, comes to fill this gap in a very particular, specific way. So, what is ICCS? What is the International Civic and Citizenship Study? It's a study that is a research program that is sponsored by the IEA. The IEA is the International Association for the Evaluation of Educational Achievement. And the IEA is an association of countries. The maximum authority of the IEA is the General Assembly of Countries, a General Assembly that gathers once a year and where representatives of every country come together and make decisions about what the IEA will do. For example, they have the flag studies that they decide to do on a frequent, systematic basis are TIMSS and PEARLS that you may have heard about them. TIMSS is about mathematics and science education. PEARLS is about reading literacy. But not only, IEA also has studies about, it's a relatively recent study about computer literacy, which is ICLS, but also this study that I'm going to talk to you about today, which is the ICCS, the International Civic and Citizenship Study. Well, IEA and the General Assembly, they decide to run this study. They have decided to run this study in the cycle, which is going to be 2027. And then we have applied and got the privilege to lead this study through an international study center that is hosted at the University of Bath. So the International Study Center, of which myself and my colleague Maria Magdalena Isaac are directors, is in charge of organizing, overseeing the activities of the IEA staff, but also the national study centers in each of the participating countries. And now, this ICCS is particular because this is the largest international research project that is devoted exclusively to civic and citizenship education. We have other studies, of course. We have national evaluations. We have international evaluations like PISA that touch upon these topics, civic and citizenship education. But ICCS is the largest international study that is fully dedicated to civic and citizenship education, which allow us to go deeper into those topics that we are interested in. ICCS provides or produces comparative data and trends on civic learning outcomes. When I say comparative data, is because it produces data that is the same for every participating country in a way that it can be compared, in a way that we can learn, one country can learn from each other. And it produces trends because this information is comparable across time, from the first cycle in 2009 to 2016, 2022, and in the near future, 2027, the information that is collected in every time point is comparable to the others in a way that we can monitor trends. We can see if we are improving or otherwise on different outcomes. What does it measure? It measures, of course, civic knowledge, which is collected. The information is collected through a test of civic knowledge, the same test for all countries. But not only, it's also interested in the context in which teaching and learning happens. And for that, it also collects information about attitudes and participation of different actors, students of course, but also their teachers and also their head teachers that report information about the school. It's also very important to say that ICCS is designed to produce actionable information, information that can be acted upon, information that can be used for action to design policies, to design programs. With the final outcome, with the final objective of improving the quality and impact of civic education, curricula, and practices. And ICCS is also known because it provides reliable and comparative data and indicators to monitor progress towards different policy agendas that can be national, regional, or even global, like in the case of the Sustainable Development Goals, the Target 4.7, which is about civic global citizenship and education for sustainability. This target is measured and monitored globally with information with data from ICCS. Very briefly, just to give you an idea of the size of the study, up to date, since 2009 to 2022, 49 countries have participated in the different cycles of ICCS. As you can see, most of them are concentrated in Europe. We have some countries from Latin America, we have some countries from Asia, and currently, as I said, we are starting the work for the 2027 cycle. We are trying to get countries that represent other regions of the world that are not currently represented. But at least this gives you an idea of how much information is produced. Another thing that I wanted to share with you is about the areas that are evaluated by ICCS. And I had already said it evaluates civic knowledge, that is also in the form of attitudes or civic attitudes, but also civic participation. It also has to do with competencies, and then it collects information from a broad range of actors, information about families, about peers, about the broader community, information about the specific, the student, but also about the classroom, about the school, and about the education system. The idea is to have lens to understand the multifaceted nature of civic education through a holistic approach that takes into account as much information, as much contextual information as possible. Something that I haven't said, ICCS is focused on 8th grade students. And why 8th grade students? Because it has been suggested by research that when students are at 8th grade, roughly 13, 14 years old in different countries, this is an age when attitudes and behavioral intentions are particularly malleable. That can be changed, that can be informed. And well, that's ICCS. Now, why do countries participate in ICCS? What are the benefits of participating? As I have already suggested, it is important because it gathers information to support teachers and students in learning and teaching civic and citizenship education. The idea is to improve the education system. The idea is to do better what we do in terms of civic and citizenship education. And the idea, since it is a comparable study, the idea is to learn from each other. The idea is to exchange best practices on what is working for civic education at the regional level, but also at the international level. As I said before, the comparisons can be done across countries or even within countries, between different types of schools, for example, between different teachers, between different regional areas, etc. It addresses areas of interest that are related to one geographical region, which could be Europe or Southeast Asia or Latin America, etc., but also can address interest of particular countries. And as I said before, it is used to monitor progress towards international policy agendas like the Sustainable Development Goals. Now, if we move to the last part of the presentation, what can we do out of all what I have been describing so far. And this is what can we do, teachers, what can we do, schools, what can we do, society, systems in general. So let me start by saying that in terms of results of this study, where the starting point. The starting point is that in terms of civic knowledge, we are witnessing a deteriorating trend. We have witnessing like decreases. If we calculate the average civic knowledge in different countries and compare with previous cycles, we have witnessed decreases in the average civic knowledge. So students in 2022, on average, had a lower civic knowledge than students in 2026 in most of the countries for which we have comparable data. And at the same time, the variation between countries has increased. So the extremes, no? So there are countries that are relatively high in terms of average civic knowledge and countries that are relatively low, but this high and low has expanded in a way that we have a wider variation than before. And so that suggests, or that tells us that civic knowledge has suffered, has deteriorated during times of crisis, because of course we cannot directly assign COVID pandemic as a cause, but it's safe to say or to believe that is related to it. No, so it has suffered as other areas of education during the pandemic and during these challenging times. Let me tell you about some changes in other variables other than civic knowledge. How about communications that are used by students in general to get themselves informed? For example, we can see in the graph, watch news on the TV for information has been decreasing. In 2009, 70% of the students said that they were watching TV to get information, and in 2022 it was only 50%. Also, as expected, if we talk about newspapers, in 2009, 40% of the students said that they were reading newspapers. In 2022, it's roughly half, 22%. On the other hand, we have the use of internet to inform students, using internet to inform themselves about political and social issues, and in that sense we haven't seen much change, 31 to 30%, but this difference is not statistically significant. And finally, talking to parents about political issues, and this could be probably good news, is one of the few that have increased between 2009 and 2022. Students tend to talk more about political and social issues with their parents. So families are playing a bigger role. If we go about trust in institutions, which is a clear indicator of democracy, something that all societies, all governments aspire to, trust in institutions. What has happened there? We also see a decrease. We have the Court of Justice, for example. It's not a huge, but it's a significant decrease from 72% to 69%. So in 2016, 72% of students said they trusted the Court of Justice. In 2022, it was only 69%. If we move to the national government, there's also a decrease from 63 to 58%. And the trust in traditional media has decreased as well, 57% to 52%. And also the trust in the Parliament of Congress has decreased between the last two cycles of ICCS. To close this section of results on good news, I would like to say that ICCS, the last cycle of ICCS 2022, confirms that the importance of civic knowledge. Why do I say civic knowledge is important? Because it is related. Higher levels of civic knowledge are related to students being more likely to support gender equality. So the higher their civic knowledge, the most likely are students to support gender equality. The higher their civic knowledge is, students are more likely to support environmental protection, and also more likely to support equal rights for immigrants and equal rights for different ethnic groups. So this is good news, I think, because that tells us about the role that teachers, that the schools can play in this. What can we do? There are many things that schools, education systems in general cannot do, but something that can do is improve the quality of education, the quality, the knowledge that our students have about civics and citizenship. And if we do that, this is related to a broad range of outcomes. It's not in the slide, but it's also related to participation, for example, and it's related to all sorts of positive outcomes in terms of civic and citizenship education. So we can do something. But what happens if we do nothing? What would be the consequences of inaction? And of course, this is a bit of a wild elucubration inference of what could happen. We don't know the future for sure, but we could safely say, I would say that if we do nothing about civic and citizenship education, we are at risk of having a further erosion of public trust in democratic institutions, which could lead to political instability and polarization. If we do not inform our students, if we don't make them informed citizens, I think it's safe to say that we would be at risk of deteriorating trust in institutions and polarization. It could also increase social tension and conflict due to the mass migration that we're experiencing and the lack of integration policies. If we are not willing to integrate, to welcome, to live together, well, that could certainly cause social tensions. It could also lead, or it could be also associated with a widespread dissemination of false information, undermining rational discourse and decision making. And of course, we would have a society that is more vulnerable to cyber attacks and AI-enabled threats which could cause disruption of critical infrastructure and services. We could also risk the escalation of violent conflicts, potentially leading to human crisis. But I don't want to leave you with this pessimist view. What happens if we do address the challenges that we can address through civic and citizenship education? Well, there are some potential positive future scenarios that could involve, for example, strengthening democratic processes through increased transparency, accountability, and citizen engagement, implementing effective migration policies or improving the likelihood of effective implementation of migration policies that could facilitate in turn the integration and promote social cohesion. Well-informed students would also be a way to fight against disinformation through media literacy, fact-checking, and promoting reliable sources of information. It could also help to invest, to understand better, to make more efficient actions on cybersecurity, and could also foster the responsible development of AI that could in turn help to mitigate potential risks. And it could also help to promote diplomacy, conflict resolution, and international cooperation to prevent and resolve violent conflicts. So in conclusion, what is our responsibility? And I don't want to say the responsibility of teachers. However, teachers are in a privileged position to do something. Not to do it itself probably, but it's a privileged position to scaffold change, to scaffold collective action that could address these challenges, require a concerted effort from governments, education systems, and civil society. But it has to start somewhere, and a good place to start is young people. And young people are, for the last time, all together in primary or secondary education, depending on the country. It's also a responsibility, the educational commitment. As educators and policy makers, we must prioritize civic education. We have to give it a central role in the curriculum, in the education system, because by doing that, we can empower the next generation of young people with the knowledge, the skills that are necessary to navigate and contribute to this complex world. We also have to foster, we also have to encourage active citizenship. everyone, I believe everyone has a role to play. And by staying informed, participating in civic activities, and advocating for positive change, citizens, I think, can influence the direction of their communities and their countries. And finally, we have to foster, we have to encourage, we have to secure a global perspective. Many of these challenges are beyond the national borders, are beyond what a single country, a single community can do. So international cooperation and dialogue are essential to effectively address issues like cybersecurity or conflict resolution or environmental sustainability, to say something. No? So we all have something to do, but I believe that we all can do something to address these challenges. And finally, I wanted to leave you with a piece of information that could be interesting for you. This is the IEA Teacher Snippets. It's a series of publications that share research findings and evidence-based strategies with teachers. Those are designed specifically for teachers, and they use data from ICCS, but also from other international large-scale assessments. The most recent one is called Teachers for Change, Strategies for Sustainability in the Classroom and Beyond. In the presentation that I trust is going to be shared with you, there's a link to this webpage where you can consult these teacher snippets in different languages. And in fact, if you're interested to translate it to your own language, you can also get in contact with the IEA and work towards that. So this is all from my side. I want to end this presentation by thanking you very much for your attention, for your interest, and by leaving my contact details. My name again is Andres Sandoval-Hernández, and you can contact me in this email, which is iccs@bath.ac.uk. Thank you very much, and I hope you have a nice morning, afternoon, or night, whatever or whenever you are watching this video.